Hello, colleagues.
Hi, Soledad.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. We are all here now.
Everybody.
Yeah. So we have the four panelists out here. I'm Anandita Mishra. I'll be moderating today's discussion.
Yeah.
We have Debarati Haldar, a very well-known name in child activism and law, cyber laws. Mr. Sanjay Sahai, an ex-DG of Karnataka Police, and he's got a number of awards to his credit, and he has done a lot of work in the technological field, which I shall share once we decide. And we have you, the Chief Protection Officer of UN, and welcome all of you.
Thank you.
We actually, lead you through the whole process. We shall begin with talking about a little bit on digital citizenship, which I'll do, and I'll hand over to you, Sole, so that you can talk about digital well-being using your presentation. So your PPT would be put up then, and you can take us through it. And we will follow that with Mr. Sahai, who can tell us about the security risk, because digital citizenship includes well-being, security risks to look out for. We are all going to advise parents, so that would be our focus always. And next we'll be going on to Debarote. She'll be talking about different aspects at different times. So turn by turn, I'll bring up topics for you to discuss, and whatever comes up during the talk, whatever we find interesting, we can get to talk on that. Okay, so our aim should be to talk about citizenship and well-being, security, the laws, the psychological impact, social media and the norms, and with the children understand the social media's do's and don'ts, and how parents can learn and help children follow the same. Are we clear on the pattern?
Yes, just a small question.
Yes,
for the presentation, I can see, I can just share a screen. I'm just doing it now.
All right.
Is that how we proceed, or how?
Yeah, you can share your screen, or I can share mine if you want. I have your presentation with me. You can share, just try. Can you share your
It's screen? Not allowing me. Let me
see. Supposing I share it, can you see? Just a second. Just a second. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How?
The technological team, I think, will be helping out. They'll try to share first. But
I think it might be just easier if, I mean, in my experience, if I can share the screen and manage, probably will be easier.
Shimoni, can you come in on that? Ritesh or Shimoni, if any one of you are there.
Yes, ma'am.
So how can Sole share her own screen? Because then it's just easier to manage the flow.
Yeah, I think it will be just
easier.
easier.
Otherwise you just say next and all.
Yes.
Can you give her rights to share her screen, please?
Because so now I don't have rights.
Great. Ritesh, done?
It's still, when I put share screen, it's not letting me.
Can the tech team share the screen when she's talking about it?
I think she'll be allowed to share her presentation. I think
that should
Ritesh should be able to manage that. Ritesh, are you there? Vineet?
Let me call him and check. Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, because we're kind of past the time of starting.
Yeah.
Okay, if it gets delayed, I mean, we can just proceed, and hopefully they will find a way either to give me rights, which, as I'm saying, probably I would say is easiest, because sometimes presentations start going crazy, and so, but if not, we'll just give it a try.
So there's a suggestion that you can change the host from some of the attendees. If she's made a host, then perhaps she'll have the right to share. Can that be done?
I think she is a co-host, but I'm just wondering where everybody is. Ritesh and Vineet, can you hear?
Hello. Yes.
Yes, Vineet. Vineet,
Hi, everyone.
Sole is not able to share her screen. Can you please ask the tech team to sort that out?
It's already been given to Sole. I mean, she's
Okay.
already co-host.
Okay.
Not come. So I'm able to share. I can see that option with me. As a co-host, I can share my screen.
Okay.
So I'd request probably Anantaji to proceed. And by the time, in fact, we can get started rather than waiting for this share screen. We have a backup presentation. If required, I'll take the presentation and I'll run it to the screen.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you next slide and we'll manage. No problem.
Perfect.
So shall we start?
Yes.
There's a background noise. Okay.
So the part of parenting. Background noise is a part of parenting.
Yeah, that is part of work from home all these days for all people.
Yeah.
Sole, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh. Okay.
Welcome, everybody. A very good evening on Parenting Day. And this is the right day, therefore, to have this webinar on parenting in digital age during COVID-19 with a focus on digital well-being and first response. First, let me introduce you to the panelists. Mr. Sanjay Sahai. Sanjay Sahai belongs to the 1989 batch of the IPS, and he is an ex-additional DGP of Karnataka Police, recipient of the prestigious President's Police Award awarded by late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Mr. Sahai has also worked in Sudan as regional commander as part of his stint with the UN. He's credited to have created an enterprise resource planning software, the Police IT Broadband Networking and Data Center for the Karnataka State Police. He has immense expertise in broadband of technologies like Tetra, geospatial technology, ERP, cybersecurity, cloud computing, and big data. Welcome, Mr. Sahai.
Thanks a lot.
To the panel. We
Thanks.
hope to learn a lot from you.
I'll try my best.
I'll
try my best. Trying to stitch parenting into my domain.
Parenting is very important because your domain is where the parents are going to take resort to if their children face cybercrime issues. So
I was trying with my 25-year-old son in last 2.5 months.
Okay.
He works for Google, and for the first time I had to do parenting digitally.
Okay.
He's all alone in London.
So you'll share your tips with us.
Yeah, I will for sure.
Ms. Soledad Herrero, it's very well-known name in child activist of platforms. She's the Chief of Child Protection in India, has been working with UNICEF and other UN agencies for the last 14 years, holding different positions in child protection, management, emergency response in Latin America, Africa, headquarters, and now in Asia. She has worked on the areas of legal reforms, juvenile justice, alternative care, gender-based violence, psychosocial support, children, and armed conflict and birth registrations. So you're very happy to have you here and get your inputs about children and digital well-being. Welcome, Solela.
Thank you, Anandita. I very much look forward for the session today.
Thank you. Debarati Halder. Professor Debarati Halder is also a name to reckon with in law and child activism. She is the honorary MD of Center for Cyber Victim Counseling, an online not-for-profit organization, a think tank meant for helping and counseling the victims of internet and digital communication crimes. She has won awards for her work on cyber laws, gender rights, therapeutic jurisprudence, criminal laws, and for creating awareness on cybercrime against women. Awards like Web Wonder Woman and Tech Next India 2019 Best Faculty of the Year. Debarati has also developed a theory called irrational coping theory for online victimization. It sounds very interesting, which is published as a book chapter titled Irrational Coping Theory and Positive Criminology, a framework to protect victims of cybercrime, in the book titled Positive Criminology. Welcome, Debarati, to our webinar today.
Thank you.
So with such luminaries in our panel, I'm looking forward to a wonderful discussion, a brief description of myself. After 10 years of working as McAfee Cyber Mom India, leading the cyber safety campaign of McAfee Group, I have also now moved out on my own as Mission Cyber Safety, because we want this to continue, to take it down to the last child in India, so that the parents and child both become aware of the travails and the benefits of the net. Digital world is a beautiful world as long as you know how to use it properly. And that is why today the focus is on parenting digital age children. The COVID-19 pandemic has made children homebound, not just children, but parents, and they are getting their education at home. They are studying online, doing their dance, music, and all other classes online. So they are continually in touch with their devices. So the question now arises that what is digital citizenship, and are we bringing up the ideal digital citizens as parents? That is our concern. If you want to define by what cyber safety evangelists say, digital citizenship is all about following norms of being appropriate online behavior, how to have civic behavior with people you meet online, and how you handle resources and use the right tools for the right purposes. Here, I would like to add that today, where the world is becoming a small global village, it has become very important to add two more words to the online behavior aspect, and those are empathy and respect. Because without that, the troubles in the digital world multiply. Parenting. How are parents going to deal with this? See, parenting is a tough job at any time, and digital parenting adds a layer of complexity because we are digital immigrants. We are learning on the go, whereas kids are digital natives. They take to technology like ducks take to water. So for them, it's very easy, right from infancy, to take a phone and start working on the phone. And we often depend on our children to guide us on the use of tech. But do our children know more than us? Do they know the limits? Do they know the liberties they have, their rights and duties? Do they know where to go if they face problems? How to tackle negative consequences? Are they aware of their online behavior and the consequences of that? I think for that you need foresight, experience which children lack, and here parents can step in. So Soleil, we'd like to start with you today. Please help us know what is digital well-being and how can parents ensure that their children have the best of the digital world?
Thank you, Anandita, and thanks a lot for having framed the discussion. I'll just start by unavoidably sharing a couple of reflections of the very difficult time that families in India and in other parts of the world are going through in a COVID context. Since, you know, we are all getting together in a very special year that has been unprecedented in many regards for our generations and for a few generations, to say the least. I mean, the world has gone through different pandemics in the past, but probably none in modern history. India and the world has gone in such a social experiment of lockdown as we've done in the current scenario. And that obviously had tremendous implications and has added tremendous stresses to to the families and to the parents, which, as we speak today, they become not only caregivers, but also they're acting as teachers, they're acting as peers, as friends, as one of the only reference that the children at the moment have around them. We've seen in India how Childline, for example, reported a 50% increase in the number of calls of children in distress in the first few weeks of the lockdown. And I think the whole country has been shattered by the image of migrant populations with their children going and just trying to reach some security and desperate, just trying to seek alternatives for the livelihoods. So all that to say, and because they say that one image counts more than 1,000 words, I have a couple of slides that I'll ask the colleagues that are supporting the webinar to start trying to put up if possible. If not, it's okay, we will continue. Yeah, and a few of my slides are just going to try to, first of all, before getting into the context of online protection, just emphasizing why parenting and why supporting programs on parenting are so relevant. So let's just move to the next slide. I think, as I was saying before, in the context of COVID, the parents have really become the first line of protection and the first line of response for the children. And there are a lot of very good arguments to support this kind of programs. There's been some global evidence that shows that supporting parenting and early childhood development programs can increase in the life of an adult 20% in the adult earnings of an individual. And also on the macro level, investment in parenting and early childhood development can also have a return in investment of around 30% in poverty and equity reduction. So if that is not convincing enough, there is the other side of the coin of the role that family can play. I said already that families are the first line of protection, but unfortunately, they are also a big source of risk. UNICEF commissioned a study in 2018 on parenting, and the study identified around 30 different types of violent discipline used by parents, including corporal punishment. And there was overall a broad acceptance of corporal punishment as a way of discipline. We also see, if we look at the NCRB statistics on sexual violence, we will find that 94% of the cases of sexual violence happen within the families, within the close circle of the children, and within it, 53%, more than half of them, will be perpetrated by families of or close friends. In general, violence against children costs the global economy at least 8% of the gross domestic product. So for all those reasons, I mean, there is a lot of things to celebrate in a day like today, but there is a lot of reasons as well for policymakers to really make a decisive investment in parenting programs. And we know that in the current context, a lot of issues that children are facing are also because of the challenges, the stresses that parents are going through, which, if they cannot be justified, still we know that that is one of the root causes that we need to look at. But having said that, let's just move to the next slide, and I'll just touch briefly again. I could not miss the opportunity in the Parenting Day to just touch very quickly in what we talk when we talk about positive parenting, what we mean. And I'll just leave two reflections here. One is the very importance of approaching parenting from a perspective of the child being you know, an individual that comes to life full, complete, and as a worth being that requires guidance indeed, but does that not mean that they're worth less? And related to that is the importance of changing the approach that we use in parenting. We need to stop looking at parenting as sort of an empty vessel that you need to fill with the right behaviors, right approaches, right interests, but rather as a person that comes with a full vessel, a vessel full of potential that just needs to be realized. And what is most important is that children will always do what they see, not what they are told. So if we want one single tip probably to reach all the parents that are listening to us is, if you want to do a good parenting, then become a role model. Nothing will be more helpful for a child than that. Now, I'm saying this because obviously we cannot talk about parenting in the digital area if we don't understand the basis of what is parenting and what is the foundation of it. And one thing is connected to the other. But let's just talk then now and focus a little bit more on what it means in a context of technology and internet use. So let's just move very quickly to the next slide, please. We know that India has overpassed the 500,000 mark in terms of digital technology users. And we know that out of them, around 60% of the users in the country are adolescent and young people. We know also, of course, that adolescent and young people are very early adopters of technology. And technology brings this incredible opportunity for children, for adolescents, for youth to learn, to communicate, to cross-fertilize, and generally to be exposed to the world. So it brings so if they can just try the team to bring back the slide if possible. So yeah, in general, the digital world brings great opportunities for children and adolescents, but unavoidably is also accompanied by some important risks. We know that cyberbullying is widespread. There's been some studies like the one that UNICEF supported through our platform of your report that identified that 1 out of 3 children in the country are experiencing cyberbullying. Experts have been warning the increased presence in the networks of sexual predators as well. And unfortunately, India, it is estimated that produces around 11% of the child sexual abuse material in the world. There is another dimension to the digital technologies, which is the, in the current scenario, that the current risk of technologies bridging the divide between those populations that are offline and are online. I've already mentioned the incredible penetration that internet has had in India, and it's also quite extraordinary to notice that the penetration is largely driven by the increase in technology use in rural contexts. But still, another striking statistic is that approximately only 8% of the households in the country have regular access to internet. We can only think what that means for the families and specifically for the education of the many children that are from, you know, less favored and poorer backgrounds in terms of education. And unfortunately, many other emergencies such as Ebola and others, natural disasters have shown us how difficult it is for children to get back to school once they have dropped for 1 year or more. Now, no yet, please, we're still in the same slide. One important reflection that I want to make to conclude this part of my reflections is that a lot of times there is a very big attention on the online risks related to anonymous perpetrators and these big profile cases of predation, sexual predation, and other. It is true that that is there and it's a risk that need to be mentioned, but it's also true that it's still a lot of the cases of sort of violations in a context of online context, people close to the children and the adolescents. And the other very, very important reflection is that a lot of the root causes that enable and factors that enable some of these risks to materialize have the same root than protection risks that happen offline. What I'm talking about is that a child that feels lonely, a child that doesn't have protection systems, a child that is going to some sort of mental health situation, a child that is out of school will be also a much more risk of experiencing online protection issues and online violence than other children. So that leads, and now we can indeed move to the next slide, to just a couple of hopefully useful tips for parents, for practitioners, for policymakers, and for those that are engaged into this field, that I hope that will be useful. Many of these lie or are drawn from a great work that CyberPeace did also. We've also had the opportunity to engage NCPCR in these guidelines that were produced for specific tips for parents to keep their children protected. The first tip will go back to a common thing that I've been insisting throughout my exposition. If you have a strong relationship with your child, if you build good parenting approach in the relationship with your child, probably you will have much better chances to ensure the protection of your children. I'm referring to the first component in the up left corner about building trust. This is the most important to be able to help your children to remain protected. The second one is to make sure that rules are set up in the home. And that increased very importantly to make sure that the number or the amount of time that children are in the screens is regulated and is agreed on. In a number of conversations we had with some parents in a number of occasions, there is all this question, oh, should we remove online screening before the exams, after the exams, and so on? Well, I think let's just make it predictable and let's just make sure that rules are set and are followed to make sure that the internet consumption is healthy, adequate, and to the extent possible is also monitored. Another recommendation will be to make sure that parents observe the behavior of children, adolescents when they are in using technologies and in internet. Are they withdrawing themselves? Are they just making sure and feeling nervous when they are there? And, you know, are you getting a feeling that they are hiding something? Are they going silent after some internet time? You know, these kind of behaviors are important to give us tips of what kind of interactions they are having online. Of course, these days there are a lot of good platforms, mechanisms to make sure that accounts specifically for the smaller children are created. This happen, I mean, you can sit with the children if they are using social media to make sure that it's clear what kind of filters they have. If they're using YouTube, there's these YouTube children that will only allow certain content to go up. Same thing in other recreation platforms such as Netflix and others. So make sure that you set them up. Of course, you need to talk with children about online threats. Very important to make sure that we talk with them about the risks of strangers approaching us in the online platforms. And another important tip is let's try to the extent possible as families, as parents, let's use internet and technologies not only to remain separated and, you know, each member of the family with their little device, but to the extent possible, let's think about activities that can bond the family. It can be about doing exercise together. If there is a video, watching a movie, it is a great opportunity maybe to watch with your children movies from, you know, from the old era and explain what the movies meant to you. So there is a lot of opportunities also for internet to be also a platform to have a family time rather than just continue isolating family members and your children from one another. Last but not least, I'll just finish the message. If anybody feels a little bit overwhelmed by some of the tips that I've been providing, very, very important. Just as there are different, I talk about the online and offline divide, there is a generation gap, and not every parent is knowledgeable about some of these mechanisms and systems. There are, I mean, reach out for help. And, you know, there are organizations, of course, like the ones that we are interacting today, CyberPeace and many others. I think it's very important that other platforms such as the schools have education also around that. But the key message here is that you're not alone. You're not, it is understandable if parents might not be online experts, but they should definitely seek help. I think there's been, again, some evidence collected at the national level that around 50% of the parents are not aware of the kind of interactions that children have online. And just as you make sure that you are aware of what is the situation of your children when they go to the park, when they go with friends, and so there is also a responsibility as a duty bearer to make sure that your children are protected online. Thank you. I'll conclude with that final remark. Thanks a lot, and over to you.
Thank you, Soleil. Thank you so much. You have encapsulated all the points of digital well-being. The other aspect of digital citizenship is digital safety. Now we are more or less aware of it, but does the job of a parent get over by handing over a secure device to the child to do their lessons, to do their tutoring, online courses? Or does a parent have more responsibilities? And how will the parent talk to children about cyber safety, the threats to look out for, how to identify them and how to handle them? Sanjay, you come in here to help us with tips.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for the very liberal introduction which you started the show with. So I generally am not an expert on parenting. Nonetheless, I deal with lots amount of digital transformation, and my transformation as a speaker and a person who understands cybersecurity happened with the United Nations. First time it was in Kosovo, and second time it was in Sudan. So I've been interacting with child protection officers, not being a child protection officer myself. Nonetheless, I've had that interaction. I've got into child rights. I've got into both the issues independent of each other. And thanks to this particular forum, that I've been forced to put both my expertise into one single basket. Nonetheless, I'll try my level best and bring that expertise to this table. Today might be for the first time. Parenting is one thing which I've always been fascinated about. And parenting is one particular skill. It is a mixture and a seamless admixture of literally anything and everything. And you can pick up any skill in this world, but only place where you will fail is parenting. Correct. So it's very difficult to find parents who get 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. You will find students or children who have got 9 out of 10, who have got 99%, 99.5% and the like. So today we are in the midst of a total digital transformation. The IT companies have tried their level best to bring in this nature of digital transformation for at least last 10, 15 years. And every single IT company, the biggest of them, they have failed. I have been using Zoom for nearly last 4 years. And the Zoom, it was 10 million meetings when it started somewhere in February or so. And today we have 200 million meetings. Suffice to say, it is not important to know whether there is a vulnerability or there is no vulnerability. Point is how we manage that. Most of the teachers, nearly all the teachers, they are parents themselves. So when they are parents themselves, they should also have a mindset of a parent. And one principal very recently, she rang me up and she was literally devastated. And she told me that in one of her Zoom classes, somebody entered and there was some porn stuff and things of that nature. The point is when something transpires, how do you react? That is very important. We have been trying to give very generic fundas to literally anybody and everybody, and suffice to say, I'll be slightly straying from my trajectory when I intend to say that in the digital world, everything is a software, everything is a setting, everything is a control. And unless we understand the technology, at least at the minimalist level, to be a good user, neither can you be a good parent or a good student or a good child. We will not be good in anything. So in this digital transformation, which has completely transformed human life, which is a consequence, not of a pre-planned digital transformation, but a consequence of a health crisis, which has landed us in this situation. And the only tool we were left with was the digital technology to survive and to maintain some sanity in our existence. And that is precisely what we are doing. So we are in a state of complete unplanned digital transformation. However much we might keep saying that we have been in the digital age for the last 25, 30 years, that we are not even in a nascent stage of using digital technology 24/7. Our life is mediated by screen. It might look very simple when I look at my moderator and I find no, everything is normal and natural. It's not that way. Between that screen and the person on the other side and me on this side, there is a whole web, primarily what we call as internet, where we have predators, we have dictators, we have espionage guys, we have literally anybody and everybody. And the biggest, I might not treat it as a general level, but suffice to say that the boys' locker room has been an eye-opener. There are boys from best of the schools in South Delhi, and out of the 22 members of the boys' locker room, only 2 were adults. And they were trading into pictures. Predators are fine, they are professionals. We will try and take care of the predators. We can get into the dark net, we can do lots and lots of things. But the boys who are there right in your homes, there has been real, a very sharp increase in cybercrime. And cybercrime also somehow we accept. But the point is, in women harassment, in children being mishandled, manhandled, whatever is the technical term, you will know it better. But they have not been treated the way they should. And this is on the increase, and there are no takers to the whole thing. I start with a very simple understanding of things, that we don't engage with our children. For what amount of time have you engaged with your child, and what sort of a bonding have you created in that child when you were supposedly in the physical mode? Now we are transforming ourselves from parenting in the digital age. We are transforming ourselves from digital age parenting to parenting in the digital age. Earlier it was digital age parenting, where what you talked about, social media, this media, you don't use it, don't use that. I was just going through a couple of messages. I write a daily post on a regular basis. And the person who has been responding to me is a teacher. And she says, won't take the responsibility for failed parenting. My next door toddler, who is not even 2 years old, sits with mom's phone. And they don't believe that kids can be made to read books. So this is where we are. School counselors are trying their level best. But the problem lies with the parents, and they openly admit that unless parents are willing to change no positive impact can be. So that is a personal opinion. Nonetheless, what we were doing is one component of the grooming of the child was parenting, and the other component was being taken care by the school. And there was management, friends, the child used to go. Now everything has converged right in that room itself and right on that particular laptop. And that being the case, the role of the parent has become nearly complete. It is 100%. You have to take care of the child in literally any and every manner. And addition to that, the work has come to home, education has come home, recreation has come home, and also your financial transactions have come home. So everything has come home. And where does the responsibility come to? The responsibility comes on the parents. Young fellows getting addicted to screens. I have seen one of my cousin brother-in-law's son. He would be around 3 years of age. He doesn't catch the phone like this as we do. He catches the phone like this. So you can well understand. He wants to, for him, it is a permanent TV, and this is a hook. So that is how this guy operates. So we are in the midst of a momentous change, which neither we are able to understand nor the children are able to understand. And the general understanding which was there before COVID-19 was that these children are very smart. They are very bright just because they can play around with the gadgets and the gadgets which you don't understand. And neither do you understand, nor do you have the guts and the stamina and the gumption to tell the child that this is wrong. We are trying, parenting is what? Parenting today has become your capability to navigate without hurting, touching, bulldozing any child. So that navigation, it does not yield any results. I have been, if you get into the ISIS part of the story, they have been the best users of social media, and the maximum amount of recruitment has happened through digital media, through relay internet chats. And as the speaker before me was saying, so what was she telling? That these people, they get into your digital behavior, your internet behavior, and they decide that whether you have a lonely or a loner frame of mind, or whatever frame of mind. See, 64 likes on a Facebook can tell you what sort of a personality you are, and more than 300 likes on a Facebook can tell you much better than your spouse understands you. So this is where we stand. So these people know who belongs to which mindset, and we have all seen of Cambridge Analytica and things of that nature, where they get into the ocean model, and then they finally basically do MRI of your brain, and they tell you what should be bombarded to which person for what impact. And this is very, very neatly and in a very polished manner also being done by the likes of Facebook and all that. Their business model is only that, there is no other business model. I started a training program which I call as the Bangalore Cybersecurity Initiative. That is only meant for schools and colleges, regular schools and colleges, not the engineering colleges and the business schools. It is primarily to equip the next generation with the ills of the digital world, where I take even a clinical psychologist in my team. I speak only about what I call as digital thinking. Digital thinking in a broken educational system, digital thinking where the social media is literally on your head, digital thinking when you have ransomware hitting schools, digital thinking when you have lost the capability to concentrate, digital thinking when parents want to be a bystander, and literally anybody blames the other. Digital thinking is the capability to understand the nuances, complexities of the digital world to the last or the minutest level as far as it is required by us, and the capability to navigate through that particular digital internet-enabled world without getting into cybersecurity issues, cybercrime issues, and still be using the whole technology, the whole repository, the whole knowledge to best of our advantage. Very rarely we find students. See, if you don't have a positive digital footprint, what does it happen? Leave aside bullying, stalking, and cajoling people. I remember of a girl, I think who was from somewhere in Denmark, and she was cajoled by one fellow from backwaters of Karnataka. And she was doing his doctoral thesis, fell in love, came back all the way to India. And then she married this guy, finally to land into some criminal case or something which the father did not want. And he booked a case against this guy. And she realized that this fellow has not even done his graduation. So these are the pitfalls of the digital world, where I think two dogs were saying on the internet, nobody knows that we are dogs. So that is precisely where we are. So the digital thinking, a digital mindset, a digital attitude, that will come only after you understand the technology, the internet, and the whole ecosystem, and realize that there will be very few people who will come to your rescue. There are large number of organizations all across the face of the world who try to help you, sermonize you, tell you the legal sections. But when you finally land into a problem, and when somebody is doing sexting to you, or there's somebody who says that I've got into your mail, I have 175 days of material and I will do this, I will do that. You don't know what has hit you. Leave aside children, their parents who keep contacting me on a regular basis. Responsible digital living is our responsibility. And this responsible digital living will not come by until and unless we understand the technology, get into a level we understand self-restraint. We also understand what is self-preservation. Otherwise, we are going to demolish ourselves completely. We have gone to extent that most of your COVID-19 websites and lots of other things are primarily for data theft. They want to collect the data and they don't want to misuse your data. So, and the other thing is that now in 24/7, earlier what happened, you give half an hour for this purpose, 1 hour for this purpose. After you come back from school, now everything is pretty streamlined, and next morning again you go back to school. Now here 24/7, you are on the digital medium. It's very difficult to make out what the child is doing. And if you try to poke more than what is required, it might lead to unnecessary, unsavory circumstances in the house.
Sanjay, may I interrupt you 1 minute out here? If you could tell us a little more about the first response of parents. Suppose a child has faced cyber threats or risk online, like say hacking or cyberbullying. At what stage should the parent approach the cybercrime cell? The police, where does the...
First, what the parents should do, if they know somebody in the known circle who understands cybercrime and can do reasonable amount of both counseling and has the capability, mostly it happens through social media. And if that person has the capability to take it to the concerned social media authorities, who are generally amenable as of now, that was not the situation earlier, but they are amenable to bring down that particular content of the social media platform, or they will block the fellow who has been trying to do that. So that's point number one. And number two, there are large number of NGOs who are in this stream. I was also thinking after I moved out of the police that we should have a free national helpline, a cyber.
But the cybercrime cells, sorry.
There are lots of them. There are lots of them. There's lots. See, we have nearly 33 lakh NGOs in India. Correct. If we had even, I think might be a lack on cyber related affair. So if they coordinate, lots of things will happen. But at the present juncture, I see people on a regular basis who are not able to reach out or they don't know where to go. So second would be responsible NGOs, and they have good number of counselors. And they also have a connect with the law enforcement agencies. Thirdly, you go to places where there are Government of India websites. So there you can lodge a complaint, and whatever I have seen in my last year of my service is that mostly it is being responded all across the country because it is nationally at one place. It is sent to state CIDs from the state CIDs to respective places, and the main instruction is that pornographic material or whatever is the objectionable material that should be brought down. And in case the last thing to do or last place to go is you go to a cybercrime police station or a cyber cell, and there either there is a complaint or you go for a state FIR and the criminal action will start.
Thanks a lot for these tips, Sanjay, because that is what we are talking about during this first response, what parents should do, because the children all the time on the digital media. And why we are talking all about social media, studying on social media, learning on social media, using social media to network and connect. And we are exposed to a lot of fake news. We are exposed to a lot of what we call excessive news, too much of information, that these things have a negative impact on the child's mind. The child is not able to handle and tackle also much of news. So what happens is, like
Madam, I'll tell you one
COVID-19,
thing.
no,
I'll
I
tell you
just
one thing.
tell you this thing about the COVID-19. There are
Yeah,
so many websites and statistics that
yeah.
can really give out information about global death rate, global affection rate, the medicines to be taken, the healthcare benefits to be taken. Children are suffering from anxiety, disorder of the mind, and even depression. And here, if you do not mind, I would like to ask Devarati, who is working with children and who is working as a counselor, what should parents look out for? Already Sole has told us, look out for changes in behavior, but you as a practitioner would be able to tell us better, what should people should look out for to prevent digital addiction, to prevent any kind of wrongdoings on social media, like social media etiquette. There's a term on the excessive information being given out, which they call infomedics being taking place, like pandemic, infodemic happening, too much of information. So how are parents going to handle this?
See,
And
first,
what are the laws on this? That also I would like to know from Devaruti. And then we'll come back to you, Sanjay, about the last resource.
okay, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this platform. I'll first go with Soleil, that whatever she told about being a mentor, I also support this particular idea, because let me tell you that how everything starts. I will also refer to what Mr. Sahai also just now told. During this lockdown period, let me tell you that why suddenly there is a great, or I would rather say huge, surge of cybercrime, criminal activities targeting the children and also by the children. There are certain things that I have actually summed up. First, let me start with something called sexual curiosity. Now, what happens is that when we speak about adolescent children, they undergo certain, hormone changes. They undergo certain kinds of, mental, changes also, whereby they need to satisfy their questions. And if they are in the school, if they are, in a physical space where they're speaking with each other, they will be having a peer-to-peer discussion. They'll be having, student to teacher discussion, and with all these informations gathered together, if the parents are a good mentor, as again as Soleil told, or if the parent is a good friend, they might come back to the home and they might ask the parents or a responsible elder sibling, or even if the elder sibling is not that matured, they would like to discuss that, I have heard these things, whether it is correct, or they would try to do something which in which, as Mr. Sahai also indicated, that the parents become more, what should I say, responsible. Now that the COVID situation is there, the lockdown situation is there, I have seen most of the children, they would go for the information from the online or cyberspace. What happens here is that we all know that the schools who are running virtual classes, or the coaching classes who are running virtual classes, or even the students or children themselves, they have got their own groups. Mostly these are on WhatsApp groups or even in the Telegram groups also. So they will start discussing one-to-one and they will try to satisfy their questions. Here comes the question of, as Mr. Sahai indicated about the boys locker room. Here also comes the question about, many other things that we have seen in the past that the children are actually discussing. And I would say that this is something which is a digital behavior, I would rather say, where when they're discussing with each other about their sexual fantasy, about their sexual queries, or even if it is not sexual, about anything else, they will be immediately guided by their peers to some kinds of links, some kinds of what you call information, etc., which is available online, and they will be also sharing those links in that particular WhatsApp group. Sometimes you'll also get to see that these are private groups. Now the question comes here, who gives the phone to the or device to the child? Number two is that who gives the number to the child? Even my child, your child, I mean all of us, I know that they are now using the devices. They have got their own profiles in the social media platforms. All these platforms or all these profiles are actually vicariously connected with us, the adults. So in this case, we have become so much like what you call dependent on our children, rather, that, or I would rather say, I would not use the term dependent. We are so much busy with ourselves during this lockdown. The children have started taking their own responsibility, whether positive or negative, to use this particular profile for their own gain, or for their own unfortunate loss. Now here comes the question that what the parents can do. If you say that the parent will be handling the device, the parent will be just digging in what the child is doing, the child might come back to the stakeholders and say that the parent is actually picking on me. Because I have seen many children, they will come over to the teachers, to their peers, etc., and also to the neighbors, that my mummy or my daddy, he or she does not they do not allow us to do our works, to do our assignments, etc., and he or she is always behind us when the virtual classes are going on. Come on, this is digital parenting. Because after we got to see that the Zoom classes are being infringed, so I have seen lots of parents, they are just like, whenever I take the sessions, or whenever even my child is in the session, etc., for her classes, I have seen the parents are actually on the backside, and it's like pretending to be listening to what we are doing, but they're moving from here to there, just to have a look what the child is doing. But behind that, or in the screen, what happens is that the child, as again I'll go back to Soleil, what she told, the child starts feeling that even especially when the child is in the mature teen level, that is from the age group of 15 to 17, the child start feeling that my friends, my peers, they will come back to say ki, you have grown up like a baby, and your parents are coming behind you to see what you're doing. And that actually causes the cyberbullying also, whether you accept it or not. Next is that I have also seen that there are we are talking about straight children, but if you see POCSO Act, especially JJ Act also, you will get to see that these provisions, they also give an opportunity for the children to be heard, especially if they have gender orientation problems, or I would rather say gender orientation issues. So what happens is that now again, since they cannot go outside, they cannot discuss with their peers, what they will do is that they will take the device and they will start searching for their own peer group, whereby they can actually communicate, they can actually discuss about what they're going through. Now, since it is again in the lockdown situation, and the parents, the whole family is there with the child, so obviously some parents might suddenly become aware that my child is not straight child. My child may have a gender orientation issue. And again, as Soleil stated, that the parents might become a little bit aggressive to say that you have to become, or you have to act as we expect you to act. And we all know that this particular problem of gender orientation, or the issue of gender orientation starts right from the early puberty stage, like what I have come to know. I mean, maybe my knowledge is very limited in this, but I have come to know about this. So during that time starts the parent and the child the tiff, and the child might go back to the online space, and he might try to or she might try to contact people of like-minded people, either from some Instagram profiles, or from Facebook, or he or she might also go for YouTube to find out how to satisfy his own queries, etc. So in such cases, especially those parents who are not aware how to handle these children also, they might be in great trouble. So what happens is that they will try to snatch the phones, they will try to deactivate everything. But again, as Mr. Sahai said, that they are actually leaving something called digital footprint. So wherever you go, the child will be having a digital footprint, which again will come back to the parents, because the parents, it is the parents' phone, it is the parents' number, etc. Because as we have seen, as per the law, no child who is under 18 can actually enter into any contract, and thereby the child cannot go and buy a SIM card in his or her name. The child cannot actually create an account without letting the parents know that I am creating. I know many children are doing that, but still then. Now here comes the question again, that how the parents are going to handle the situation. As Mr. Sahai was telling that, there are steps to actually control the entire child's, behavior online. It is very, very much essential that the parent becomes friends to the child. Now, obviously, there are certain families who would not be, so easy friends with their children, because they actually have been brought up, the parents have been brought up with a very orthodox mindset where they cannot be that much, quick friends with their children, especially when the children are coming back and, blame it on our sex education, blame it on our societal orthodox pattern, etc., where the child is coming back to ask the parents that I have been exposed of these kinds of things, and what is it meant, especially if it is a very younger child. Then the parent, what would they say is that don't look at that, and that's a bad side, and don't go for that. Why this is a bad side? This is the responsibility of the parent to make the child understand that this is not a safe side, this is not a legal side, especially for children who are 18, under 18. Now again comes the question of, I will again go back to the lockdown period, as both Soleh and Mr. Sahai said. We all have seen that domestic violence has actually increased during the lockdown period. Now here, when the child under 18, it can happen to an adolescent, like, a mature teen. It can happen to a younger child also, who is getting to see every day that the family members are fighting. The mother is fighting with the father is throwing abusive, words to the mother, etc. The child needs to speak out. And in this case, you will also get to see that the parents, I mean, I'm talking about offline domestic violence, the parents also are trying to shut up the child by stating that it's none of your business, your mother is not doing good, or your father is not doing good. And so many things are now becoming exposed, that what the father did, what the mother wanted to do and could not do, and all these things, with whom the child will discuss. So again, the child will get back to the group that he or she is attached with, that is the peer group, either in the WhatsApp or by actual phone, system, that is in the digital and like internet communication system. And not only that, even like, communication through phone, whereby the child starts sharing many things, that is the family secret, with the friends, thinking that I need to share, because there is nobody to listen to that child. And what happens? Here comes the question how the doxing starts. As we have seen on Instagram, Facebook, I would rather say that it is not that much now popular with the children, but Instagram is. So there I have seen, like, many parents, they have also told me that the child had been exposed by, some kinds of doxing, etc., and which the child should not have learned, or the which the child should not have, what should I say, the parents did not think that the child would be learning. Now, what happened, how it had happened, how some other children, or how the other perpetrators, adult perpetrators, have come to know about the child and why they are sharing these things. Now, this is the reason, because the child had to speak with somebody to get his or her own mental satisfaction during the entire lockdown period, because he or she was probably, viewing these kinds of domestic violence things, and he or she wanted to share. And that particular information has been misused by the child who had been listening to this victim child, or listening to this poor, alone child, or by any other, adult in that friend's home. It can be the parent, it can be the sibling, etc., and they have probably made it, exposed on Instagram or any other platform. Now, these things come again to the, like, summing up to this thing, that how the parents are going to now make the child understand that this is real life, this is reality. Now here again, I must say that when the parent is actually explaining everything to the child, the parent knows that I will go back to the, the subjects that the schools are teaching. The parents know that the child is learning biology, the child is learning reproductive systems, and the parents also know that the child has to see certain contents which are there in the NCERT books also. You will get to see that the links are also there. Here comes the responsibility of the child to make parents to make the child understand that this is something which is absolutely legal, this is something which is not unethical, and to mentor the child to understand that this is for your academic purpose, this is for your study purpose, and this is for your life skill purpose. So here comes the question again, what is negative, what is positive? When, like, as you mentioned while you were introducing me, that irrational coping theory, while what you call working with the children, and also while working with adult women, because I also I specialize on cyber victimization of women and children. I had seen, and I had also observed, that there should be a triangular party. Okay, one is that the parent, the second is the teacher, and the third is the website. Now I was getting to see someone here was writing that why we can't go for a nationwide ban on the contents. Please do understand that that is not possible, again, because there are something called regulable porn, there is something called irregulable porn, and in that case the courts many times have come to say that no, this is like a blanket ban on the porn is not possible. But if it is a child sexual abuse material, or if it is something which harms the child's psychology, etc., that should be banned. How that should be banned? How we are going to discuss, or how you are going to differentiate between the same? Now the website's liability comes here because the websites also have got something called due diligence. Whatever is being shared with the child, the website will not be having 1,000 eyes to see that what the child is actually accessing. Here comes the question that if the parents take this very positively and strictly, that if the child has opened an account, the parent should be linked with the child, which obviously all social media platforms provide. And there is no need for picking digging on the phone, etc., but there is a necessity for randomly checking that the digital footprint of the child. If the parent comes to know that the child has visited some site, etc., it is necessary that it should be in a very child friendly manner. The discussions, etc., should be in a very child friendly manner. Maybe it is like while we are on the dinner table, while we are watching the TV, or while we are on a family chit chat, etc. So the parents can, like one of the parents can start discussing that why this is not good, what for that particular content is created, and what sort of impact the child might have. I have seen also, I would like to discuss here, because I think all panelists would agree with me, there are certain majority of the children, when they're exposed to these kinds of negative contents, negative contents in the sense extreme porn contents, or violent contents, etc., either they will be traumatized, or the second thing is that they will go for self sexual gratification. That is more dangerous. Now obviously there are people who might say that this is something which is adolescent behavior, but this should not be allowed. So that is the reason the parents should become friends with the children to discuss about what may be the impact. Now coming to the question of the teachers, suppose for example if the child gets to see any bullying incident, or any trolling incident, or any doxing incident which is happening with the other children also, or the child is victimized by her own schoolmates, etc., it is the responsibility of the parents to talk with the teachers, to talk with the school management. And I know that almost all schools have got their bullying policy, have got their some kinds of policies for managing some kinds of online harassment, etc., but are really executed properly? I don't think. Because why I'm saying, most of the teachers, as Mr. Sahai was telling, most of the teachers are parents, and most of the teachers will say they don't have their Facebook profile, they don't use Instagram, so they don't know that what to do with that. And again, when you get to see that the child is looking at TikTok, I mean, which is like the favorite pastime activity of the children, the child will be exposed to many more things. Now that the government is taking some kinds of steps that the TikTok should be banned, or the TikTok should be answerable, etc., it is the parent who should come together with the child and say that I would like to share that what you are share to the child, that share whatever you are seeing. And immediately again, if something comes up, then the parent can say to the child that this is something which is not to be seen. Coming to the question of the teachers, if the teachers become responsible digital parents, they can also become responsible digital teachers. And in that case, the child need not even go to the next step, that is the fearful aspect of going to the police, facing the police, and then how to file the FIR. And most of the parents I've seen, they would not like to go to the police. I think Mr. Sahai would agree with me, because the victims, they have, especially if it is a woman or if it is a girl, they have got the fear in their mind that somehow the entire data would be leaked to the news media, and thereafter the harassment will increase. Now the question is that if this triangular thing, that is the parent, teacher, and the website, they're coming together to make everything settle down, that okay, the child will be made to understand that these are not to be seen. The website is taking due diligence that certain things, that whenever they're getting to see that it is a child, they're going to block certain contents from the particular profile. and also the teachers also making the child understand that it is not to be done, especially in the WhatsApp groups, that if the teacher takes a very strict action to talk with the child or the parents of the child that this is something which is wrong and we are going to take strict action, I think that there is a possibility that the child will understand that okay, this is not to be done. But again, I'm telling that it is something which is just a drop of a water in the entire ocean. We have to be extremely patient with the children, especially when they have been exposed to so many things for past so many days for the lockdown. Now coming again to another thing which I was thinking of discussing here, we have something called therapeutic jurisprudence, which is a new understanding of the legal jurisprudence. This actually speaks about how to use the law as a healing tool. So we have POXO Act, we have JJ Act, and on the above everything, we have got IT Act. We know that there are certain activities which have been considered as criminal activities if done on the online space. So the parents, and also it is the responsibility of the school mostly, the schools and the teachers must make the child sensitized and also the parents sensitized that even if the particular criminal act has been done by the child cannot be excused because the child is under 18. The JJ Act very clearly says that whoever has, the IT Act very clearly says whoever has done something, even the POXO Act also says some in the same line. So the JJ Act also says that if the child has committed something, the child will be taken in custody, but it should be child-friendly custody. That means the child would be put up in the observation home.
Debarati, I'd like to interrupt you here once. The answers that you're giving now are all part of the questions that we have received till now.
Yes.
So can you wait till the questions come up?
Sure,
Because otherwise we'll be repeating all these points, because your beautiful points you're bringing up, you have covered everything from counseling, the need for parental intervention, monitoring and mentoring, and no, like as both Soleil and Sanjay have already pointed out, that parents play the first role of response when it comes to parenting digital kids during lockdown specifically. So because we are running very short of time and we have got around 12 questions to be answered, I would like each of you to give me 3 takeaway points for parents, 3 simple points as to what they should do when their children are online. You've already mentioned about don't be helicopter parents standing behind, keeping an eye, or you have spoken about building up trust, or Sanjay has spoken about how to bring about the transformation, how to be a friend to your child. Now, we'll start with Soleil. Soleil, 3 points.
Thank you, Anandita. Maybe I can just focus on one single message, perhaps, because it's been so comprehensive, and also to leave the other panelists to emphasize a couple of other sort of more technical parts. But if I can just reflect perhaps in, I was following with a lot of interest in a lot of questions that have come. And I think there was a lot of sort of technical questions and also question marks on how parents can tackle this overwhelming technological world that is so difficult to catch up with, right? And, colleagues were talking about TikTok. I mean, even for, certain generations that have been online for some time, they might be focusing on Facebook, as we've been saying, but completely ignorant of TikTok and so. So I would just go and just prioritize a very basic foundational point of online protection, security, and parenting, which is just make sure that you build a relationship, that you build trust, that you are there to listen to the child and understand what is their fears, what is their concerns, and build that kind of relationship that is not based on authority, but is based on that willingness from the parents to nurture, to be there for them, to listen. A lot of the issues that come on in terms of the online and safe online engagement and sort of unhealthy online engagement of children in the net is because of the lack of attention that they are receiving in their inner circles. So sometimes a lot of children, they're desperate just to have that nurturing and support that they are not getting in their basic circle. You don't need to understand internet. Actually, your kids can teach you, you know, get interest. I mean, be interested in what are they doing. Don't judge them. Don't, you know, the moment they show their Instagram, you know, start criticizing, oh my God, why you're, you know, showing legs, or why you're with this, or you're drinking, or things. Don't question them. Make sure that they feel that they have a safe space with you as a parent to make sure that, you know, that trust will come. Technological issues, that's something that can be sorted along the way. As long as that real sort of, you know, strong relationship between the father or the parents and the children are. And one thing that hasn't really come as strongly, and I don't want to leave this platform without comment, is please parents, I mean, don't be gender blind to how you sort of support your boy child, your girl child in that relationship with internet. I know that everybody is particularly concerned about girls in internet, but the solution is not to discriminate them, to give them less opportunities for the girls to have an engagement and use the internet as a platform. We've been talking about the incredible platform that that internet is for engagement, for exposure, for learning, you know, to satisfy the appetite of adolescents for learning and discovering. Please don't penalize girls just because certain risks that is not for them to blame. Empower them and give them the tools, but don't try to put them on, you know, on a glass ceiling to make sure that they are protected. Rather, empower them, give them the tools, and make sure that they have the agency to learn to say no and to protect themselves. Those are the...
Thank you, Soleil. It's about building trust and no gender bias, and nurturing and building up such a relationship between parent and child so that they can come to you, talk to you, and you be on the same wavelength. Sanjay.
Yeah, so general homilies for the parents and for the kids has been since times immemorial, and all of you will certainly believe and accept the fact that in last couple of years, since the onset of social media, I don't think we have improved either in the level of security, or we have been able to decrease the crime, or the responsibility taken by either parents, school management, teachers, or the students. So this has not happened. So primarily one size fits all is not the story. The story is, as in earlier days, you have different types of parents and different types of children. Is the organic growth of parenting which counts. It has to be organic growth of parenting between that mother, that father, and that child. And this role model we talk about is not very easy. Today, at my nearly 54, 55 years of age, the only thing I ask my child, that have I ever guided you in a manner which has been detrimental to you? Point number one. And point number two, have you found me doing anything wrong in your 25 years of your existence? Correct? Now this whole thing of friend business, there has to be a referee at the end of the day. It cannot be friendship all the way. And this whole friendship business has brought us to a pass where we are. So one side we go into the legality of it, other part we are getting into the counseling of it, and what we leave free in between is the exact responsibility of the parent, which takes huge amount of time, huge amount of understanding, trying to know the psychology of the child, then creating a whole ecosystem wherein you are basically a propellant of creating a system which is precisely his. So both things have happened. Today also at 25 years of age, this boy, now he's an adult and he's been working, this is the third year. But think of a fellow who is staying all alone in a flat in London. He works for Google and there is nobody. And he is in this stress situation. So he has the faith, okay, this guy will guide me. So your ability, two things. One is the organic growth of parenting. It cannot be subscribed and described and prescribed by any number of webinars or books or counselors. So it is individual, that particular relationship. Second, this friend, it happens to a level Beyond that, you will have to certainly guide him, be harsh at times, bring him to the right track, and see to it things happen in the direction it should. Third, that the parents themselves have to be role model, not by giving homilies morning till evening, by their behavior, by their conduct. Fourth, not understanding technology in the very same manner as not understanding law or being ignorant of law is absolutely no excuse. So broadly, these are the things. So where I gain a higher moral, technological, and also a control by my own practice and my behavior, and I have a sobering impact on the child, and also to provide the child all the facilities and amenities with relation to knowledge, which is right there on the internet and is not being used. You will find it to be extremely strange. And most of the time, these kids are spending on social media. If you go to proper Wikipedia stuff, you go to YouTube, and there are large number of avenues by which you can become the best in that particular field. Those things are not being attended. There is a cousin son of mine. He got interested in cooking. We were all amazed with 10 CGPA. He got interested in cooking. In around 2 years' time, he was one of the best bakers in the country. And in food photography, he became #1 in India. So this is the opportunity which internet provides, and that is also the opportunity which internet provides. So broadly, you have to decide as to how best you will exploit this great medium and how best you will keep your child and the whole system safe, and try your level best to be as useful for the community as you can be. Okay, those are different trajectory. What you should do, so that also you should be clear about and you should know. Even educators have a huge responsibility in POCSO. And most of the educators don't know that they are supposed to intimate it to the police or intimate it to the juvenile justice and lots of other things. So those things are not there. So precisely we break down the whole thing as a breakdown structure with the action component, technology component, and then come to that result. The beauty lies in that detail. The beauty lies in the specific activity. One single statement and one single activity can repose faith in you to unimaginable levels. So this has been my experience. I'm not talking about from any textbook or any legal book or my police experience. This is my personal experience parenting a child and keeping in the whole gamut of things which we should be.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. I extremely support you when you talk about being a role model, letting the child, give the child independence, mentoring, and be not just a friend to the child, but also a parent to the child. And very quickly, Debarut, if you could conclude this for us, because we have 16 questions waiting.
I would rather suggest that we should go for something called positive use of social media. That's what I want to say. Positive use of social media, like, I don't know how many of the parents, I would like to bring this thing. How many of the parents had got a haircut from your children? How many of you are enjoying the, recipe made by your children? How many of you are actually seeing the movies which are listed by your children? So I think this is something which we should consider, positive use of social media. The parents should encourage the children to use it in a positive way. And I think that's where we come to this discussion that it is responsible digital parenting. Because if we are responsible, we can make our children also responsible.
I muted myself. Thank you. And we have a whole host of questions. We could look at all the questions out here. We'll be handling them one by one. Quick one. I think we have already dealt with Vidita Kumar's question. Digital world has become integral part of our life. How to make it more secure and accessible to our kids? I think Sanjay and Debarati has a very well, succinctly covered that. Is monitoring a child's phone or social media accounts considered helicopter parenting? What do you say, Debarati?
I couldn't get the question. Could you please repeat?
Is monitoring a child's phone or social media accounts considered helicopter parenting?
This depends from the child to child and from parent to parent. But yes, I believe that this should be done by the parents in a friendly way, not in a not child friendly. I mean, it should not be something which will be, allowing the what you call the ticking and the harsh punishments, etc. It should be done in a child friendly way.
Thank you. how can parents restrict children up to 6 years from excessively using mobile phones? Sanjay, can you throw some light on this 6-year-old?
Yeah, I'll come to how you restrict from excessively using mobile phones. I'll just add something which I missed out. And I think every child should be told by the parents, school management, friends, whosoever they are, at least senior to these guys, is that their digital footprint will decide as to in which country he will live. So he will be denied immigration to what country you think as your future and greener pastures for exploitation of your capability and all that. So
but if your child is below 6.
No, I'm not talking about, I'm giving general, couple of points I'm telling you. Correct. Then second is, that is higher education can also be denied because of his digital presence. And his recruitment can also be denied because of digital presence. A negative, adverse digital presence. Now we come to the 6-year-old.
How can you prevent the 6-year-old from excessively using mobile? You will find 6-year-old throwing tantrums if the parents don't hand over their mobile while they're on a shopping spree or visiting somebody. So
I told about organic parenting. And till 6 years of age or even 10, 12 years of age, the child should never get a phone. The issue with parents is, because to get that amount of free time, they give the mobile to the child. And over a period of time, the child even doesn't know what he is doing and is completely addicted to that phone. Phone should not come in his hands till around 12, 13 years of age. Even in +2, phone and laptop beyond a point, I did not give it to my son. It led to friction, it led to lots of things, so it be. But today, after that, he became a national talent scholar, he studied in IIITB, and he works for Google in London, and still he says, in the 12th standard, what did Papa say? He will ask his mother today also, what did Papa say? So what Papa said was, don't celebrate his birthday if he doesn't get this number of marks. You might find it to be harsh, but all of us have come the harsh way. And when you are working in a working environment, you face lots of music every single day. And this child who gets addicted at less than 6 years of age, what will he do as he grows up? God only knows. So less than 6 years, there is absolutely no way that the child should get a mobile phone and he should get connected to internet. It does not understand what it is and it does not deserve that gadget. It should not be given to him. Otherwise, you are creating imbeciles of the nature which you cannot imagine.
Okay. Sole, you wanted to add something to this?
Sorry, I couldn't just help just thinking that on the issue of the 6 years old and below, it was back to the point that I said earlier, that children will do what, and they will reflect on what is our behavior. So I think, when parents, the first thing they do when they come home is just desperately being on the phone, and they're constantly on the phone. And children perceive the excitement and anxiety and connection that parents have with the device, and that is transmitted to our children, right? And this is the most important thing, because the parents are completely glued to it, and therefore something extraordinary needs to happen there. So if we don't control our own behaviors at home, our consumption, if we're completely absorbed by it, there is no chance that the kid is not going to develop that, fascination by those devices. So again, it goes back about being role models, and there's no chance that you will prevent that fascination happening if we are not a little bit careful on how we engage with our devices at home.
I think you can take the next question also, Soleil, because it's in your line. Does introduction of digital education, though it exists, but makes no difference, to children from age groups 8 years and above make a difference? Will digital education to kids 8 years and above make a difference? What do you say?
So if I'm understanding correctly, let's start saying the basics. Education is not just about transferring knowledge. It is so much more that education brings about. It's about rational thinking, it's about emotional intelligence, and many other factors that are clearly hindered through an online education. And there are other aspects that education brings, and children going to schools bring as an addition to the children. So let's be real. I mean, let's be truthful to the situation. It is better to have online education than non-education. Yes, certainly it is.
Yeah.
Now, will ever digital education replace education, particularly in this critical period of the life of a human being, where they're building themselves, you know, their identity, their sense of worth, their emotional intelligence? I would say that the answer is no. And, you know, obviously, the world has had to make very difficult decisions in the last weeks and months, and the decision has been made to just try to battle this pandemic. I also want to send a message of not panicking on the parents, in the sense that, you know, it is also true that few months of non-learning, it is also not something that cannot be caught. So I also want to send a message of tranquility to the parents, that this is something that can be caught up with. And, you know, unfortunately, and I'm talking from the perspective of UNICEF working in you know, more than 192 countries, with so many going through natural disasters and other emergencies, and many children frequently missing classes. And this is something that can be compensated. But again, going to the basic question of whether we can think about models of replacing in the long run online, sort of the regular education system with online platforms, I would say that, you know, that that's not the ideal movement that we want to see happening.
Thank you, Saleh. A question that come up here and that I would like to take up is, children are too good at deleting history. How can parents track the footprints then? The footprints are not there just in the website where they have typed in the URL. They are there on their social media account, on their Instagram, Twitter, Vine, Facebook, and all other accounts that they may be using, kind of pictures they have posted, comments they have made, kind of interaction they have shown. Have they been appropriate? Have they been racist? Have they been bullies? Have they been mean or spreading rumors or fake news? These all things count, as Sanjay has pointed out, Debarit has pointed out. So that is your footprints, what kind of character you have built up, your online character, that your employees, your future college recruiter boards may have a look at before they give you a chance of admission or give you a job. So yes, the social media accounts, you need to friend your child there and track their activities. Do not comment on their social media accounts, but later on use them to create learning points. The next question, Devarati, has the parenting style changed in the digital age? I think Soleil may be taking the second part. What is the role of parents, mentor or agent? Like reflecting a cartoon of Punisher, mentor or agent? So Devarati, has the parenting style changed with this?
Yes, it has. It has. Because not only for, seeing the or getting the information about how to do the parenting, we actually dig into internet, but also we introduce our children pretty early, like what Mr. Sahai said. And I wanted to, mention something here. The children would be more like, if it is a younger child, the child will be more attracted to the moving, colors. And that's the reason that the child gets attracted to the device. Because if you are seeing a TV or if you are seeing a movie, etc., the thing will not be changing according to the child's wish. So we do give the devices to the child to satisfy the child, and later onwards the child becomes adamant to have the device with him or her. And then the entire concept of parenting to be like helping the child, it actually ends up in actually making a disastrous result or consequence for the child. So yes, parenting has changed with the digital improvement, or I would rather say information technology developments. Yes, it has.
Thank you. And Soleil, mentor or agent?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we can all reflect back and just think through our family life history, how what was the approach in the system, and how different it was when our grandparents raised our grandparents, when our grandparents raised our parents, etc. So I think it's completely unquestionable that the models are changing. I want to think that the models are changing for good in general. But of course, we need to strike a right balance, as I said, of not confusing as well positive parenting, which is a lot about mentoring, as I mentioned before, a lot about positive reinforcement, and a lot about realizing that childs are a full individual with just potential that needs to be untapped, but at the same time to realize that also children needs to be learned that there are rules of society, there are norms, and eventually they will grow into converting themselves into duty bearers. So I think we need, there's been a tendency sometimes to lean a little bit from hard disciplining children to confusing positive parenting to just laissez-passer and everything is enabled. So as usual, it is extremely important that we keep a right balance and we don't confuse as well the positive parenting that we've been talking about from no provision of guidance and not set up of rules at all, which is the other extreme of the equation in terms of things that we don't want to see happening in parenting.
Thank you. This question, I'm not very sure. Children with mental retardation, autism, etc., during COVID-19, they face more difficulty. There's no explanation given as to in what project digital age parenting can help. But any of you have any idea how they can get over it?
The question is put to whom?
The question has not been put to anybody in general. Children with mental retardation, autism, etc., during COVID-19, they face more difficulty. So the gentleman wants to know how those children can be helped.
I think Sole can take up the question.
Look, what I would say is that policies and provisions for any child with disability and with special needs are extremely important for every context, and whatever challenge we talk about, whatever emergency comes the way, they will be further exacerbated for those children with special needs. I actually have to recognize that I don't know in the context of India, but what I will share is that I do know, and since they were talking specifically about the case of autism, I know for sure. I am from Spain. So in Spain, they made special provisions when children were not allowed to go out. Autist children, just as an example of a good policy that is sort of sensitive to the needs of autism as other children should be. Children with autism could go for a walk, actually, and they had a special ban where if they are registered, they have a special registration, they will be allowed to go out, because for children with autism, it's very difficult to remain in the house. So fully agree with the comment that there are special needs and special considerations that that needs to be factored in how we're not equal as people were saying, and someone was also writing that every child is different, and those kind of considerations needs to be put in place. I'll just add I thought it was an extraordinary, fascinating reflection that a friend with a special needs, particularly with physical disability, shared with me, which is very different from this. And this person told me how being physically disabled, that in a way the lockdown has equalized everybody, because there is a lot of things that she could never do. Yeah, there's a lot of workshops that she could not do. That she could not travel as easily And now everybody was kind of constrained back in their houses. So it's really fascinating to see another perspective of how actually lockdown in a way has also equalizing from a different perspective.
Two very quick questions before we wrap up. I'll request all attendees to kindly share on Twitter all your questions. They will be answered. Two club together. One is, if a teacher says, how do you respond if you receive a porn sticker from a student? And the second one, I'm clubbing two questions together here, are how about older parents or people in rural or semi-urban areas who do not know much about platforms or security? How will they be able to guide their children? So porn stickers, Devaruti, would you be able to take? And Sanjay, about guiding children by parents who are not that cyber savvy?
Okay, so what I understood is that the question is about how what to do when the student is using stickers.
Student has sent the teacher a porn sticker.
Okay, okay. First of all, you actually have to, I mean, as a teacher, I'm telling, you have to make the student understand that what is the illegal act that he's doing or she's doing. Because if you see from the IT Act perspective, and if you also see from the IPC perspective, if the student is sending any indecent or any sort of like, you know, what you call, porn content or whatever it is, which is like sexually explicit material, as the teacher feels, because if you see from the IT Act perspective also, that is the same thing. And if you see from the IPC perspective also, I can go back to 354D if the student is continuously doing it, or if it is for the first time, the teacher needs to tell the student that if it is a male child, that 354D is not going to be, is not going to excuse anybody. This is number one. And here again, the teacher needs to be a little bit harsh on the parents also, and also on the student also, but it should be not that harsh. It should be like, making the child understand that what sort of criminality he might fall into or she might fall into if he or she has done this, and if he or she does not stop this. Second thing is that the teacher should actually explain this to the entire class group, not to do this with any other teacher or with any other child. I think this is what the teacher should,
Thank you. And Sanjay?
With regards to parents who are very unfamiliar with the digital technology and the gadgets which go by, I think it is the duty of the state and also other agencies which are a part of the whole game to come up with some dissemination campaign where you make the parent and the child both known as to what are the ills of digital technology. And over a period of time, you have to educate the parent so that he understands what all is going on. Might be from a very basic level as to how much time the child spends on the smartphone or on laptop. So from there you can devise, and there are lots of areas where we have done huge, very successful public dissemination campaigns, and we have been able to thwart lots of social evils. In the same manner, I think there has to be a very specifically designed dissemination campaign by which you put it into that parent as to what he should do with the child, how he should guide him. And in case there are issues, there will be certainly some counselors, some people in that particular area. So their help should be taken in case he finds that there is something which is going out of control.
Thank you.
Anything wrong done digitally has some reflection in his physical behavior. So that anomaly can certainly be, very easily it can be found.
And thank you. And I think with that, we shall call a wrap. There are fantastic questions, and these questions kindly addressed to with the hashtag of CyberPeace to the CyberPeace Foundation Twitter account. And thank you all panelists. Your inputs were wonderful. And thank you attendees for your patience, for listening to all of us, and for your questions. Good evening, good night. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. It was wonderful being on
and
the panel.
Thanks to CyberPeace Foundation for organizing and for giving us
Thanks, Vineet and CyberPeace Foundation.
Thanks,
Thanks a lot.
Everybody. Thanks, Indonesia.